everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Two Sided Truth. My name is Lisa Tracy. I am your host and moderator, and I'm really, really excited that you all decided to join us this evening. So, the Two Sided Truth, where we debate, where we defend it, and you decide. A podcast where facts are presented and you decide the winner. Our sponsors for today's debate is The Flip Side with Lisa Tracy and Shy High Apparel. I'm really excited that you decided to join us this evening. Tonight, we have two debaters with opposing views debating on the topic, the U.S. strike and the capture of President Maduro, and was it justified or was it a national security action? Or did it just violate I'm sorry, let me read that again. The U.S. strike and the capture of President Maduro, was it justified as a national security action or did it violate international law? So, arguing the position of the strike was justified is P.O. Caines, and arguing the position that the strike violated international law is Danny Miller. I'm really excited to have them this evening. So, here are the rules of engagement. Our debaters, they have three topics, right? They have three subtopics. Each subtopic is 8 minutes long. For each subtopic, each debater will lay out their argument first, and then they will have a chance to respond or counter before moving to the next topic. I will engage and moderate the discussion. So they are laying out the facts. And like I've said to them, it's okay to be emotional. It's okay to be passionate, but we want to be respectful. To our listening audience, since you're able to participate, you're able to participate by voting and also communicating. But our debaters have worked very diligently with presenting facts and preparing for this debate. So we understand that you too can become passionate. However, we ask that you all are polite with your commentary. We are streaming live on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. However, you can only cast your vote by going to the twosidedtruth.com. So at the end of this debate, there will be a winner because you would have voted. Debates are timed, so remember that. So with that being said, let's begin. All right, before we begin, I want to have our debaters introduce themselves. So with that being said, P.O., how about you go first? Introduce yourself, tell the viewers a little bit about you.
Yeah, good evening to everyone that's on the podcast. My name is P. Oliver Caines. Uh, from New York City originally, been in Houston for about 20, almost 22 years. I work as a consultant doing tax consulting. Happily married man of 17 years with three lovely children. I say happily married, right? So depends on what my wife says. But yeah, I mean, been in Houston for about 20 years. Um, Love what I do, and most importantly, I'm a servant of the Lord Jesus Christ, and I'm glad to be on here with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, P.O. I appreciate it. Danny Miller, please introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, my name is actually Danielle Miller, but people call me Danny Miller, which is okay because they can't say Danielle. But anyway, I am a what I call the self-proclaimed political junkie. I've been following politics for quite a few years. Um, I have two books that I've written, not yet. One's not yet published, the other one is. And I too was also married, but my wife is deceased, so I'm a single man and highly opinionated. I think that's why Lisa Tracy has me on here. And but other than that, I'm your guy.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And I also want to thank our studio audience for your patience as we tackled our a little bit of some technical issues, but we're back and we're here and rolling. So I just want to reiterate, everyone, we are streaming on Facebook, we're streaming on YouTube, we're streaming on LinkedIn, but you can only cast your vote, which is important, on the two-sidedtruth.com. So let's get into it. So just to kind of give a little bit of historical relevance, was the U.S. strike and the capture of Nicolas Maduro justified as national security or a violation of international law? So the U.S. has used military force 200 plus times since WW2, but only 11 had formal declarations of war. Manuel Noriega, Panama 1989, is the closest precedent. U.S. invaded, captured him, tried him in U.S. court, and still legally controversial. Post World War II, international law was designed specifically to stop unilateral invasions like this. The UN Charter prohibits force against another country unless self-defense against an imminent attack or approved by the UN Security Council. No UN authorization was given. Presidents often act without Congress, but capturing a sitting foreign president is an escalation beyond typical strikes. War powers resolution requires notification, but rarely stops action. Drug trafficking is not necessarily a traditionally considered grounds for military self-defense. So, with that being said, our subtopic is our subtopic is, does the president have unilateral authority to order military strikes and capture a foreign leader without congressional approval? And P. Oliver, you have the floor.
All right. Well, once again, thank you for having me. I look forward to having this discussion with Danny.
Oh, and I'm
But
sorry. I'm sorry. Let me interrupt you. You do have the floor, but you also have 2 minutes to lay out your argument.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Once again, I do thank you for having me on this podcast, and I look forward to having this healthy discussion with Danny. But in terms of the question, I would say absolutely, and the reason being is that there's the constitutionality of it. Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution stipulates that as the Commander in Chief of the Armed Forces, Trump is constitutionally bound to protect the national security of the U.S., fortify U.S. interests, and protect U.S. citizens by directing military action. He's well within his authority to deal with external forces that threaten sovereignty unless impeached by Congress. Number two, according to the Constitution, the Take Care Clause Act, which is Article 2, Section 3, mandates that the president shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. In other words, all federal statutes are to be enforced by duty. This includes the apprehension, arrest, and prosecution of those who have been criminally charged with U.S. crimes. As we know today, Nicolas Maduro has been indicted of some charges, and by law, Trump is well within his rights to apprehend him. Number three, I would say precedent. As you stated earlier, Lisa, in 1990, President George Bush ordered the military to capture Manuel Noriega, the corrupt dictator of Panama, who was indicted on drug trafficking charges and endangering U.S. citizens. After a surprise military operation in the country's capital, he was taken into custody and spirited back to the U.S. for trial. At the same time, in 2000, back in 2000, and gosh, I forgot the year, in 2016, Barack Obama used a 2001 authorization for use of military force or executive order and had a drone campaign with 503 strikes in Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen. The man even dropped over 26,000 bombs on 7 countries in 1 year. And so there's clear precedent of military action. Oh, wow. Okay.
Time. You'll
Gotcha.
have a chance to counter.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, P.O. Danny, please lay out your argument for the same subtopic.
Well, it's kind of hard to do because you already hit the basics. This is a violation of international law. Now, these laws were established 80 plus years ago. And when you don't understand your history, you're destined to repeat it again. So back then, we also had a madman, a white nationalist, who decided that he was going to have border disputes, or he wants to be world domination. So the purpose of the UN before it was a League of Nations, the UN it has its own court, and we under President Truman set this up 80 plus years ago. That if you have a dispute, you need to take that dispute to the UN. This president has not. But the host clearly said that what Obama did, as opposed to what George W. Bush did, he didn't seek Congress approval. He went without a declaration of war. But when Barack Obama did it, it was an imminent threat that he had gotten and he needed to take care of. The only problem I had with Barack Obama is when they went again and captured Saddam, no, not Saddam Hussein, excuse me, but when they dethroned, I'm drawing a blank here, as well as I know this man's name, Gaddafi. That was the only problem that I had. But we have an international court for a reason. And when you have these border disputes, you are supposed to go to the international court. You don't become lawless simply because you have the power and the might. Because when you do that, oh, we're the strongest nation, so we get to do what we want to do. Well, we're not the strongest nation. China is watching. Russia already tried this, but China is watching. And I guarantee you, Taiwan will fall next. If we allow this president to constantly be lawless and do these shameful acts, Taiwan will be next because China is watching.
Thank you so much. P.O., would you like to counter? 2 minutes. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, we good?
We're good.
All right, sweet. Um, yeah, military action is not a declaration of war. That's number one. Number two, the regards to international law, the Article 2 of the Constitution takes precedence and priority over Article 2 of the UN Charter. And so members of the United Nations can complain all they want, but the US has veto power in the UN Security Council. And so international law is, it sounds good, but in reality, it is hardly ever enforced. And a law that cannot be enforced is not a law. And so we can, we can have the discussion about, well, we have to seek UN's advice or whatever. Whatever the U.S. needs to do for this, that is its own national interests, and especially within the Western Hemisphere, we have the authority according to by the Monroe Doctrine, the Roosevelt Corollary. Even now, Trump is doing his own corollary, that we have the ability to either intervene or to make sure that our house is in order. And what I mean by house, I mean by the Americans. And so, yeah, international law sounds great, but what we're seeing now is going to default settings. It happened with Russia, the Ukraine. UN didn't do anything. Every other thing that we've done, the UN has not interfered. And so we have the ability to do what's in our best interest, I believe, and go forward. There's no international court that I know of where they take these situations to them, and they now able to delegate any response. We are constitutionally bound. Trump's constitutionally bound to do his best to enforce the law and do his best in our national security interests.
Thank you so much. All right. So I just want to say our polls are open for this subtopic. The polls are open, but you can only vote at the twosidedtruth.com. You can only vote at the twosidedtruth.com. So please go on over, vote for our debaters, let them know that they have your support for this subtopic. Danny, do you have a counter for this?
Yes, I do. When he says that he's bound by the Constitution, that's not totally accurate. What the problem is that when you look at the United Nations, there are 10 heads of the United Nations. They come together and they are supposed to, how should I say, resolve these types of disputes. But when you have the principal leader of the United States, I mean, of the UN, which is the United States, who is violating the very thing that our President Truman set up, then you have a problem. We have a president who doesn't respect the rule of law. We also have a president, in my opinion, is doing what we call wag the dog. This is just a distraction to keep us from talking about the Epstein file. So now we get into the situation where now we're talking about other stuff. He's going to chicken out like he always does. We're talking about Greenland we're talking about Greenland 1 week, then Iceland the next. If the United States, who is the principal leader of the UN, is not willing to uphold the laws and the statutes of the UN, and there is a court within the UN that handles these types of disputes, if the United States is not willing to go to this court, then why would Russia want to do? Russia already violated when they went against the Ukraine. And what did the United States do? Nothing. And so that's the problem. Now, you can't tell me that any other president would have done more to Russia than what this president done. But, there are those of us who feel like he's cozying up to Vladimir Putin. Kim Jong-un is watching this, and China is definitely watching this. Mark my words, this is nothing but a wag of dog to keep us from talking about other things. And if you ever never watched the movie, go and Google it. It's called Wag the Dog. Google that movie, and you'll find out what's going on in the United States. But the principal leader, which is the United States, who gives the UN their teeth, who gives the UN their bite, is not willing to stand up, then the whole thing is going to fall. And that's a Bible prophecy. The 10 toes of the statue are the UN of today. That statue is in the book of Daniel, chapter 2.
Thank you so much for that. All right. So I have a few questions of my own. 30 seconds for these. But before I get started, I want to encourage people to go on over to the twosidedtruth.com and cast your vote before the polls close for this subtopic, the twosidedtruth.com. All right. So my question, 30 seconds, PO. If over 90% of U.S. military actions since World War II occurred without a declaration of war, is this an accepted norm or a constitutional failure?
Well, in this scenario, it's not a declaration of war, and so therefore, because it's not a declaration of war, based on precedent, the United States is able to perform military actions. Again, Article 2 of the Constitution lets the president he is bound by the Constitution to enforce national security. Nicolas Maduro is a what do you call it? He was a threat to the United States. Lord, have mercy on my soul. Okay.
Sorry about that. Danny, question for you. 30 seconds. Poll closing in a matter of 1 minute. At what point does a strike plus capture of a foreign head of state cross from limited action into a declared war? 30 seconds.
It has to be an imminent threat. And we haven't seen that. We have not seen that. What we have seen is what is called a distraction. So when you say constitution, we have a constitution. We have 3 equal branches of government, but we only have one president acting like a dictator. So he gets to set the precedent, and that's wrong. No one man rules this nation. And one man can declare something against the nation without Congress approving it. But we have a do nothing Congress.
Okay, thank you. Last question, PO. If Congress repeatedly allows presidents to bypass them, who is actually eroding constitutional checks?
Well, again, because it's not a declaration of war, the president is not obligated to respond to them and give them any kind of ask them for any kind of assistance or to release for them to go do what he needs to do. And so I don't see it as being a checks and balance issue. As the commander in chief of the armed forces of the United States, he is well within his rights, according to the executive branch, to perform military action against threats to the United States. And so I disagree with the I'm not going to turn off anyway, but Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, PO. All right. So moving on to the next topic, moving on to the next subtopic. So, Danny, this will be for you. So, just to give some historical relevance, since 1945, fewer than 10 sitting heads of state have been arrested and tried outside of their home country. Zero were captured via unilateral U.S. military action and prosecuted domestically without international authorization. Excuse me. Um, Head of state immunity is a long-standing principle under customary international law. Exceptions exist for genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, typically prosecuted via international tribunals, not domestic courts. So, the next subtopic is, does the US have the right to arrest and prosecute a sitting foreign president? Excuse me. Danny.
No, no. Listen, what was the purpose of President Truman starting this court? We had a madman who was violating everybody else's borderline. We had a madman, a white supremacist, who thought that he should set the rules for the entire world. And that is why when we fought World War II, that at the end of World War II, the used to be called League of Nations, then formed what we call now the UN. The UN is supposed to handle these types of disputes. And you can't say it's a declaration of war when you haven't even let the Congress sit in on it. You just say, oh, I'm the president. I'm going to do a declaration of law. I'm going to go and violate the UN statute that we created. We are the principal holders of the UN. We are the ones who uphold the UN. And when you violate what you uphold, then it doesn't make it right. Once again, this is just a distraction.
Okay. Thank you so
Incredible.
much for that. Okay, PO, same question. You have 2 minutes.
Sure. Absolutely. In 2020, Maduro was indicted by a federal court on charges of narco-terrorism, conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, and weapons offenses. And what's ironic about it is that he had a $15 million reward for leading up to the arrest and conviction of. And in 2020, Joe Biden upped it to 25 million. I'm sorry, yeah, and that was in 2020. And in 2020 last year, Joe Biden upped it up to 25 million, and then last year in August, Trump upped it to 50 million. And so he is indicted by U.S. federal courts of committing crimes. Number two, recognition. The United States has not recognized him as Venezuela's legitimate president since 2019, when the Trump administration backed his opposition following a disputed election. The indictment describes Maduro as Venezuela's de facto but illegitimate ruler. Even the EU Council of 2024 rejected any democratic legitimacy as president of Venezuela due to the refusal to produce evidence as the voting tallies from their electronic voting system. Number three, even more than 50 countries, including the US, have refused to recognize Maduro as the head of state in 2019 and again in 2024. And so in a case like in 2015, it was a case by the Supreme Court that concluded that presidents have absolute authority to recognize foreign governments and to recognize foreign governments. Number four, precedent. The Supreme Court has repeatedly held that unlawful abductions of criminal suspects from foreign soil, even by the U.S. government, do not preclude their criminal prosecutions in U.S. court. This goes far back as 1886 with Kerr versus Illinois, and the most prominent being in 1992 with the U.S. versus Alvarez Mackin, who was a Mexican citizen who killed a DA agent and its pilot. The Supreme Court ruled that his abduction did not violate any extradition treaty because the treaty says nothing about obligation of the United States and Mexico to refrain from forcible abductions of people. And I'll leave it at that because I'm about to wrap up.
Thank you so much, PO. Danny, would you like to counter?
Yes, I would.
And before you do, I do want to let everyone know the polls are open for this subtopic. You can only vote on the two-sidedtruth.com for this subtopic. You can only vote on the two-sidedtruth.com. Thank you. Go ahead, Danny.
I want to clap because everything that he just said was supposed to go to the United Nations, was supposed to go there. And I still hold to the fact that if we are the teeth of the United Nations, then we are the ones who are supposed to follow the guidelines. We don't take it upon ourselves to label somebody a criminal and then go and then try to dic- uh, be the next dictator because that's what's going on. So when you say that this person violated this and this person violated that, we have a court system for that, for the very argument that he just laid out. You could take that argument verbatim to the UN, and then the United States, once it has upheld what the standards that it has set, then you can go in and say we can seek military action. But I doubt that that would be the case. But you would lay out the guidelines. Even George W. Bush is having problems with the UN during the whole Afghanistan, the whole Iraq war thing. They said, okay, we're going to do something about it. But they didn't because the United States are the ones who backed it. And if we're not going to back the UN, then let Putin do what he wants to do. And then
Okay.
because China is coming, mark my words, China is coming. They're watching this, and their navy is big as ours. Their air force is big as ours. And China is the next superpower. And Taiwan will fall if this foolishness keeps happening. I close.
Okay. Thank you. PO, would you like to counter?
Yeah, just quickly, number one, the UN courts do not supersede U.S. Constitution, the American law system. Number two, international law. We keep hearing that, saying that, but it's not really real. And the reason why it's not really real because it can't be enforced. If you cannot enforce a law, it's not a law. Laws must be enforced by the possibility or potential of force. We don't have that. When Russia invaded the Ukraine, nobody did anything. If China was to invade Taiwan tomorrow, the UN is not going to do anything. And so, even with the U.S. now going after and indict someone who was indicted back in 2019, was charged with three by a U.S. federal court for at least 3 or 4 charges, we were well within our rights based on the law to go after him. Again, the Supreme Court has already let us know that that the U.S. president, the U.S. government, has a right to go after those who have intended to do our country harm in one capacity or another. The indictment is that they have, as a narco terrorist, that they have done our country harm. And so we have Supreme Court precedent, right? We have the Constitution, and so yeah, it sounds good that we got to look to the globalization and to the UN and to seek their approval. But their only duty is going to work against the weaker nations, not against countries that are going to do what's in their best interest for their nation and for their people. And so, it's been a great pie in the sky, a great argument to say you're not international law, but it has no teeth if it's not going to be enforced. And so, United States is doing what they need to do, and I support it. Also, Maduro is he's not a de facto president, head of state.
Okay, thank you, PO. Thank you so much. All right, the polls are still open, but they will be closing soon for this subtopic. You can only vote on the two-sidedtruth.com, the two-sidedtruth.com. So I have a few questions for this subtopic. Where are my questions here? All right, so excuse me. 30 seconds. We'll start with Danny. Why was Maduro tried in the U.S. courts instead of an international tribunal?
In any court issue, you have to first bring charges in any court, and then it's up to the jurors to decide. But if you decide that you're going to be judge, jury, and executioner, then like the previous guy was what he was saying, why did we set up this court in the first place? We are the law enforcement of that UN court, along with 9 other nations. We set the precedent, and if we violate the precedent that we set, then the thing is going to be lawless, and this is going to be the door. This is going to be the door for World War III.
Okay. Thank you. PO, Same question.
Um, so Maduro violated U.S. law, and so U.S. courts are the ones that gave the charges, and therefore, because of that, he's not required to go to international law. He's required to go to the United States to be judged. As a matter of fact, what's so makes it so interesting about it is that they went in with a military strike, wrapped that dude up, brought him back to go see, to go see him. He didn't do what Obama did and kill Gaddafi. He didn't do any of those things. They went, got the man safe in his family, brought him back, and tried in a U.S. court of law.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. PO, question for you. 30 seconds. If the U.S. claims this authority, what stops other nations from arresting U.S. leaders under their own laws? And before you answer that, the polls will be closing in probably 1 minute for this subtopic.
You said what stops them?
Yes.
You can try. I mean, and see what happens. I mean, countries, powerful countries are going to do what's in their best interest. And so if that is the case where they would try, as a matter of fact, there was a guy in North Korea that committed a crime and they put him in prison. We weren't able to get him out. And so there's been many times where we've been prisoners of in different countries where they've been held, and we haven't been able to extradite them out of the country.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Moving on to the next subtopic. So just the last subtopic, and the polls will be closing for this subtopic in 30 seconds. So Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves in the world. Before U.S. sanctions, Venezuela supplied up to 10% of U.S. crude oil imports. Shortly after Maduro's capture, U.S. companies re-entered energy negotiations, energy negotiations, and commercial airspace and economic engagement reopened. So the U.S. interventions have often aligned with strategic or resource interests. So Iran 1953, oil nationalization, Iraq 2003, energy and regional power, Libya 2011, oil and influence. And in several cases, the original security threat was later downgraded or disproven. So topic 3 goes back to subtopic 3 goes back to PO. Was the operation driven by national security or economic and geopolitical interests like oil? PO, you have 2 minutes. And before you do, I would just like to let everyone know that you can only vote on the twosidedtruth.com, the twosidedtruth.com, and we are ready.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think that it's not an either or situation. I think it could be one and the same. But for the sake of this discussion, I would say that it is a national security, a national security interest. Number one, it's not as though the U.S. needs Venezuela's oil, seeing as we're the largest oil producer in the world, and we've been like that for some time now. But it does take into consideration that under Hugo Chavez and later Nicolas Maduro, the country aligned itself with adversarial powers in Iran, Russia, and China, as well as Cuba, and hollowed out their democratic institutions. And specifically, Russia and China were using Venezuela to get a foothold in the Americas by exploiting their natural resources, train their local forces, and enhance their own military presence in the region. So what this does is prevent outside powers from having any leverage and keep our adversaries out of the Western Hemisphere. A perfect example of that is, I think it was last year in Panama, where there was a Chinese corporate presence that had, which was very strong, where a company operated key ports at both ends of the Panama Canal. And so Trump sent Rubio to pressure the president of Panama, claiming China's involvement was a national security threat. The Panama Supreme Court basically ruled in the U.S.'s favor, and they effectively booted the Chinese company out of both ports. This, again, is just a reestablishment of the Monroe Doctrine to preserve America's reign over the Western Hemisphere. And I'll say this as well, is that years ago, U.S. corporations built the infrastructure that was in Venezuela. And then when Maduro and Chavez took over, they took over those assets and nationalized the oil there. And so this allows the country the U.S. to go back with the help rebuild that infrastructure to get it to a place where it's profitable for both sides. So it definitely is a national security issue because we do not want our adversaries. We do not want China. We don't want Russia. We don't want Iran. We don't want Cuba in our backyard, playing footsies with Venezuela or any other Latin American countries. We have a right to protect our interests within this hemisphere, and I'm all for it.
Okay. Thank you so much, P.O. All right, Danny, same subtopic question. 2
When you
minutes.
bring up when you bring up the fact of oil, that's what this is all about. The United States never goes anywhere where there are not resources, and that is where the difference comes in. There, if they were so interested in our national security, there are other places you can go. Okay, so when you look at this situation where it's always about the oil in Iran, in the early 50s, it was about the oil, which gave us the Iraq War, which the hostage situation came later. So the U.S. is always poking its nose in other places. The problem that the U.S. has with China is this: China doesn't send its military bases anywhere. China operates on something called the string of pearls philosophy, where China will go and build infrastructure. But the infrastructure that the United States built in Venezuela was not for the benefit of the Venezuelan people. It was for the benefit of the oil company. But when China goes places, they build for the benefit of the people. So China has a different philosophy, and their philosophy works. And the United States is pissed because China will build ports, China will build roads, China will build something to help the people of that nation. The only thing the U.S. does is put a military base, and that's why we resent it all over the world. We don't go anywhere unless it benefits our oil. They want the Venezuelan oil so that when the war starts in Iran, we will have that 25% that we're now getting from the Middle East. And they want to control the oil that's going to Russia. Russia's not going to allow that to happen. They're not going to let you, because they need that oil to keep the war going. So it is all about oil. And with that being said, welcome to World War III, because that's what's going to happen if we don't put this president on the leash and let Congress do its job. We can sit by, but in the end, there's going to be destruction because we're constantly chasing behind oil, and we need to get off fossil fuels. We have the technology, so solar and wind is here. But all you ever hear these oil companies talk about is fighting it. Now we have more electric cars than we ever had. And pretty soon the electric car is going to take over. That's what we need. We need to get off of fossil fuel and stop all these stupid wars and conflicts. Because that's all this is a conflict. We have a president that is oil hungry, and we need to get rid of it. I close.
All right. P.O., would you like to counter?
Yeah, I'm respectfully with all the talk about World War III for every single time Trump has been in office for the last 5 years. There's always been the threats, or you hear the chatter about, oh, he's going to lead us into World War III. He's going to lead us into war. He's going to lead us to this, and what happens? It never happens. As a matter of fact, in the last year, Trump has brought about peace to eight different conflicts in Africa, in the Middle East, and even in the Americas. And so this is not a man that is looking for war, but what he is trying to do is reestablish peace through strength. And I appreciate that. For too long, we have been America, the United States, under Barack Obama, under Joe Biden, under the last. I'll leave with these last two. They have been allowing countries to just run over us, take advantage of us, take our money with NATO, billions of dollars going here, billions of dollars going there. And this dude, Trump, is like, nah, we're not having that. We're going to do what's in our best interest. We're going to make sure the American people are doing well, and we're going to make sure that we don't have China, Russia, and any other nation that is not in this hemisphere sitting, setting up camp in our backyard for a variety of reasons. We just went through like over 20 million illegal immigrants that came in across the board in 4 years under Joe Biden, and that wasn't just Hispanics, that was Chinese, that was other agents, that was our people from the Middle East that crossed the border to do God knows what. And so, yes, it is definitely a national security risk. And again, the Monroe Doctrine, which is he is reestablishing to let the Americans know that we are going to do what is best for our country, but also to make sure that we have peace and prosperity for all people that are all nations that are in our region.
All right. Thank you so much for that. You escaped. You escaped the bomb.
Oh yeah, man, I'm happy for that, boy. I feel good. I was gonna do the happy dance, but I said it's too late for that. Can't do the happy dance.
I know. All right. Thank you all so much for that. All right. So I do want to let you all know the polls will be closing soon. This is the last topic. This is the last topic. The polls will be closing soon. Please cast your votes at the2sidedtruth.com, the2sidedtruth.com. I have a few questions. Danny, 30 seconds for this. If national security was the primary driver, why did economic engagement follow so quickly?
Well, to that, I really can't really speak. But when a president starts claiming national security, that's just what it is. It's just a claim. You're saying that, like his previous statement, talking about immigrants. The average American doesn't know that Barack Obama has deported more people than Donald Trump, and he did it using the Constitution. And that's all we're looking for. We're looking for a president who's not willing to just smoke and mirrors and wag the dog and create all these different obstacles in order just because he's trying to get away with something else. That's what we need to be concerned with.
Thank you. P.O., same question, and I can repeat it if you want. Did you want me to
Please
repeat the
do.
question?
Yes,
Okay.
I appreciate that.
If national security was the primary driver, why did economic engagement follow so quickly?
Because I think they both go hand in hand, right? So national security with concerning different countries can also lead to you know transactional and Trump is a transactional president. I mean, so he's looking to do what's best for our country and see what you can do for us. But we also realize that we could also help other people as well. And so Trump being a businessman, he's able to put two and two together, unlike any of our presidents that we've had in the last 15, 20 years.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. All right. I have a few more questions. P.O., this question is for you.
Sure.
Oh, before we get started with that. Does access to oil weaken the security argument or does it explain it?
Ooh. I mean, the elephant in the room is that Venezuela has the largest oil reserves, unrefined. I think in the world, if I'm not mistaken. And Danny could correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're not.
Um,
You're right.
but I don't. Does it weaken it? Um, I don't. I can't say. I really don't know. Possibly, but do we have a leg to stand on? Yeah, we do. So
Okay.
we need to put 45 seconds on this bad boy. I'm about to
Danny, same
report.
question. 30 seconds.
It sets a bad precedent. Listen, if the goal is oil, then tell the people it's oil. Just like now, Trump is talking about Greenland. Okay. One of the reasons that he's talking about Greenland is the same argument about global warming. Because of global warming, Greenland resources have come available. That's why he wants Greenland. So it's all about the resources.
All right. Thank you for that. Last question, and it's going to be for both of you. Danny, I'm going to start with you. 30 seconds for this. Where is the line between protecting national interests and pursuing economic advantage?
For me, it's the Congress. Always has been the Congress. It always will be the Congress. But when we have a Congress that is on its knees, that is pretending to be a lapdog for this dictator type president, we're in trouble. So there is no line. Right now, Trump is setting the line. He's calling people he's calling people criminals when they're not criminals. If you really want to find some criminals, go over there to Israel. A lot of criminals over there, but we won't do nothing with Israel. but we're going to complain about everybody else.
Okay. Thank you, Danny, for that. PO, same question. Where is the line between protecting national interests and pursuing economic advantage? 30 seconds.
Yeah, so let's just make sure we come on out. You gonna give
Sorry,
it to me now,
sorry.
Lisa?
That was
Are
a
we doing
mistake.
that now? Word.
That was a mistake. I had to start the timer
Tell me how you,
over.
tell me how you really
We
feel.
want them free when
Slip
you
up the
strike
mouse. Slip up
vicious.
the mouse.
Don't
Oh
follow
my
the rules,
God.
just strike out.
All right, I'll start it
That's
over.
wild. Oh man,
There you
repeat the
go.
question, please. You got me all,
Okay,
sidetracked.
yes, sure. Where is the line between protecting national interests and pursuing economic advantage?
Um, it all aligns with the executive branch. Remember, the president of the United States is over all foreign diplomacy. Number two, he's the one that handles all, and so he's the one that's going to deal with all diplomacy. He's going to deal with what's best in our national interest. And, you know, outside of going to war, outside of a declaration of war and basically trying to take over another nation, I think he's well within his rights to keep doing what he's doing. And he's doing a great job. People say he's not, but he
So,
is.
so,
He is, man.
Okay.
He's killing it. He's rocking it.
All right. All right. I know I said that question was last, but I'll ask one last question for the both of you. But I do want to let people know the polls will be closing for the entire debate in like 1 minute. So if you have not voted, please go over to the two-sidedtruth.com, the two-sidedtruth.com. All right. 30 seconds. PO. If another country used resources if another country used resource security to justify a strike, would the U.S. accept that logic?
Towards who? Just in general?
Yes.
Um, I have no idea. I mean, we saw what happened in Russia and with Ukraine. I mean, they just went to war. It wasn't a military strike. It wasn't. They went to war with the Ukraine for a variety of reasons. Because the United Nations continued to encroach towards the borders of Russia, and they felt what they had to do what's in their what's in their their national security, and what's in their best interest. And so we're not the world police. I know they want us to be, but the reality is those countries are going to do what they want to do. And we're not going to go to war with them because of it.
Okay. Danny, same
we
question.
are
Did you
the
need me to
world.
repeat
We
it?
are the world's police. We are one of the principal leaders of the 10 nations of the UN. We set the precedence. We say what goes on with the other 9 nations. We say what goes on with it, and we do it legally, and we do it. What's the purpose of having a constitution? To have a rule of law. What's the purpose of having laws for real? To keep order. So if you're not gonna respect any rule of law, you're going to have destruction.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. All right. The polls are closed. If you have not gotten your votes in, it is too late. I want to thank everybody for voting. I want to thank all of our both of our debaters. You guys did a wonderful job presenting your topics. So I must say that there is a winner for this debate, and the winner is P.O. Caines.
Oh,
Congratulations. You are
yeah.
gifted a gift certificate to one of our sponsors, either at the Flip Side with Lisa Tracy or Shy High Apparel. Thank you all so much again for debating. Thank the audience for thank you to our audience for tuning in to tonight's debate. Join us for our debate next week. I believe we're going to be talking about the killing of Renee Good, and we have two debaters that I know are going to bring the heat. So I thank you all so much. If you want to keep if you want to keep conversations like this going, check out our newsletter, The Flip Side with Lisa Tracy, where we bring two perspectives of both sides of the story. Again, that's The Flip Side with Lisa Tracy.com. Don't forget to subscribe and like our YouTube channel. That's The Two-Sided Truth. That's our handle. Again, don't forget to like us. And I thank you all so much. You all were wonderful. And Tune in next week. Take care.